Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
Whew. Happy Tuesday. I'm going to be a little bit remote today, and we're going to make this a not short broadcast, but it'll be shorter. We're going to be joined by Fred Galvin today. I want you guys to know that, first of all, just as an aside, yes, the rumor is true. Rent a judge from JAG instituted a $1,000 a day sanction against me for not giving up the Antifa guy that got me on the call. And I started thinking about this yesterday and said, well, why is the call so important? Why is it so important? I mean, I was on the call. I heard it. We have affidavits. They have an affidavit. It's a tool. Anyone that knows anything about me knows that I'm not going to give up anyone. I'm never going to put anybody in harm's way. And so far, they said that I've paid over $140,000 in sanctions, which is true. I have paid over $140,000 in sanctions because I refuse to put other people in harm's way. But what they're trying to do is stay away from all the details associated with Eric Coomer. The fact that he is a Satanist, the fact that he is he brags about raping his wife, the fact that he wrote about killing cops and wanting President Trump to die, and his radical leftist ideologies, and the fact that he was the guy pulling the strings inside of Dominion voting system. And it amazes me that somehow along the way, these radical leftist judges don't understand that they're actually being exposed. And that no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you cannot get away from the fact that we have stolen elections in this country. And so, I'm going to talk about a few things, but I want to spend most of my time talking to Fred. Let me just tell you a little bit about Fred. He's been on here before, by the way. He's unapologetic. And some of the things that he's been able to, frankly, I read his story and it makes me sad. He's an author of a book called A Few Bad Men. He is a retired major in the Marine Corps, 27 years of high-risk combat, special ops, 0 Americans lost under his command. He was betrayed by the very people here that said that they were going to have his back. And it's all too familiar of a story that politics creep into the thing that should be the most important to all of us. Loyalty to our country, loyalty to brothers and sisters, regardless of where they live, who they are, what color they are. It should be an ethos in our country that we should have that same sort of moral, ethical character. Fortunately, that's not the case. He was accused of war crimes, and he was the first Marine court of inquiry in 50 years. And he wasn't betrayed by the people that in his command. He was betrayed by people above him. It shows you just how political our world has become. As we start talking about this with Fred, sorry, man, I get so angry. Yeah, yesterday I was angry. The day before I was angry, and I don't want to get. I'm not angry to the point where I'm like, I'm angry. I'm disappointed. The word. I'm disappointed. Disappointed that we can't let the ridiculous even have a seat at the table. So some of the things we're going to talk about today with him, it's going to be the National Guard going to LA. Is it the right call or is it political theater? And so we got a bunch of stuff to talk to him about. And then obviously we'll talk a little bit about the fact that the FBI lied to Congress. Man, our country is literally riddled with idiots at the highest level. And so we're going to talk to Major Galvin about that. I'm just going to bring him on. So Major, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
You know, I told you I'd order your book before. I will get it done this week and make sure. I think actually they already ordered it for me, so I'll read it this week. But I went through and just read a little bit of the excerpts that were online about it. And before we get into what's happening and some of the things that your take on those things, I want to say I'm sorry. I want to say, you know, it's a story that we hear every day that whistleblowers and or people that serve honorably are basically hung out to dry by really bad people. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're talking about the military or you're talking about government or even, you know, civilians that come forward. I don't think there's ever been a good story about a whistleblower that's been treated respectfully or honorably. And as I read about your story, it becomes, and I'm not sure I dug as deep as I did today on it previously, but it becomes just, it's disappointing. It's disappointing.
Well, thank you. And we have the same thing going on, much as yourself and those who have supported these stolen elections to expose what happened. But now we're having a case where whether you or myself or others who are bringing things to light, uncovering things, you know, there is active lawfare. This is what communists do, is they attack their political opponents. They tie them up in court, try to take their money and time. And unfortunately, it's very effective, and you have to stay with it. You have to stay laser focused. And what we're seeing right now is a situation where our government is, by the left media and by left politicians, they're trying to destabilize this federal government and show that calling in the National Guard is Stalinistic. This is Gestapo-like tactics. These are the brown shirts. And this has gone on several times. And let's just talk about some of these examples, Joe. I mean, during Kennedy's presidency, you had them called in to, same thing with Lyndon B. Johnson, Mississippi, Alabama, Detroit. The strange thing, as far as fact versus fiction, their National Guard forces have killed and wounded American citizens under Democratic watches. So when we look at what's happened right now in 2025, it's very different. Try to find evidence of a National Guard or a U.S. Marine, because the Marines were called into Los Angeles. National Guard's been called into Albuquerque, Memphis, Washington, D.C. So one, there is precedence that this has happened. Two, this year, what we've seen, zero evidence, not one single evidence of a federal national member of the National Guard or Marine Corps, anyone that was called in federal, killing someone or shooting someone, a U.S. citizen. So these types of scare tactics, what they do is they erode the trust of the public. And we want to have what they have brought, and that is in Washington, D.C., 50% reduction in violent crime, 48% reduction in robberies and property crime. Joe, let me recalibrate my gauges. Is that a good or a bad thing? That's actually what we want when cities, in fact, most of these are liberal-led cities. The municipal leadership has failed. And when you fail, you need to be held accountable, or you need to be reinforced with people who can get the job done. And that's exactly what happened, whether it's the case that I was involved in, where we had runaway success in Afghanistan up to 2005, and then who knows the whole reason why, but you developed, when I say you, I'm talking specifically about then Lieutenant General Petraeus and then Lieutenant General Mattis. They came together and they developed this Field Manual 3 TAC 24 counterinsurgency. Encourage your listeners to read it and prove me wrong, that this counterinsurgency strategy, which was unfortunately resurrected from Vietnam where it was proven ineffective, they tried to push this on a populace in Afghanistan that believes in Sharia law. I mean, look what's going on there now. So this was, that started from success turning to failure, and from a decisive victory turning into what many wanted was a forever war. And when there's violence, when there's crime, the duty of the American people, or the duty of the U.S. government, there's 6 specified tasks in the Declaration of Independence, and that's provide a common defense. And whether that's at our border or, when I state these historical cases, Joe, I'm not making this stuff up. These are all facts. I encourage your listeners to research this and prove me wrong. But you and I mean, these things have happened in our lives. When National Guard was called into Operation Katrina, to D.C., Detroit, Mississippi, Alabama, that's been done. The only deaths or wounding occurred during Democratic leadership. Nothing this year at all. So, but one thing, the whole bottom line up front, Joe, is you and I lived in a youth where you could walk outside as a child and you didn't have to have the supervision of parents. We Americans today have been robbed. It literally have been robbed because that was American culture. It was safe enough, but now you have people coming across our border, killing children, stealing children, bringing sex trafficking, bringing slave labor. This has to be identified. And thank God we have leadership at the federal level now for the first time in a long time that is targeting this, just like we did with an enemy target overseas. But we swore to defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it's time that we take that seriously. And these people who are making videos like retired National Guard, Major General Manner, and military, they say, well, we shouldn't be talking about other military members. Well, Major General Manners, you're retired, and you're talking about the commander-in-chief. He is the commander of our armed forces. So you saying this is dangerous, you are playing right into the playbook of what China wants, is to make our government look illegitimate. Is that helpful for the United States? No. What is helpful is to stop infiltration from our borders, is to reduce and hopefully over a 4-year period of time, eradicate these violent crimes in our cities. And if the municipal leadership is not effective at getting it done, then we need to call in federal leadership, because every single American, every single one deserves the childhood that Joe, you and I, and people listening here had. We deserve to be free.
I grew up very poor in a place where we fought all the time. So
that's good.
I would say that even back then is better than it is now. But let me ask you a question. You talk about what we're doing in these different cities. And by the way, Washington, D.C., I've talked to people who live in Ward 7 and Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. They finally can walk down the street. They can walk down the street. They can walk their dog. They can go to the store. They can be out after 6 o'clock. These are people for the last 4 decades that haven't been able to go outside their home for fear of being robbed or killed. They would have to hide a necklace, and wear, turtlenecks in the middle of the winter. And you'd say, well, that seems a little extreme. No, they would have to wear jackets, and they would go outside in jackets or sweatshirts. It'd be 100 degrees outside. They would have to do that in order to make sure they protected themselves. They don't have to do that anymore. So, but I have to ask the question, and it begs to, there's been Republicans and Democrats prior to President Trump, and then most of these are Democrat-controlled cities. They created the problem. They allowed this to happen. So, why is it they can create a problem that our leadership that is largely ineffective and weak can create a problem, and then we have to go in and fix the same problem that we created? It seems like a self-perpetuating problem, a self-licking ice cream cone that we're constantly having to go through and fix, which should have already never been broken to begin with.
Yes. Well, just like we're talking about these situations in major cities in America where crime has run rampant, it's the same situation or similar. The basis is for what happened to our Marine Special Operations Task Force in Afghanistan. And that was during the George Bush, 43 administration. What we had, and to answer your question, you use the phrase that, others had created, all it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. When you do nothing, when you take no action, when you don't make a decision and you don't reinforce that with action, this is what happens. Is we had success in Afghanistan. The war was won in 2005. Then you implement this hearts and minds, the strategy of hearts and minds as far as counterinsurgency. And the premise, Lieutenant General Mattis, look it up. He hijacked the Hippocratic Oath and said, first, do no harm. So when you give that as your precipice to United States Marines, we were ambushed on the 4th of March in 2007 when this was implemented. We were ambushed by a car bomb that blew up right in front of our face. We were shot at on both sides of the road with multiple echelons of jihadists right on the Afghan-Pakistan border. You don't want to have a general telling the troops to first do no harm. When you are violently attacked, you need to return fire and counterattack. That's the way that we were trained, and that's what I did as a commander. I was in the patrol, and we returned fire. But what later came is not only did General Mattis create that doctrine, but he was what they call the convening authority. Definitely wasn't convenient for me because this was the longest war crime trial in American history. And what Lieutenant General Mattis did is he sent 45 criminal investigators and 5 prosecuting attorneys to dogpile 7 of us. And 2 of us went to trial. We were exonerated, but they used non-legal terms. They didn't use dismiss. They didn't use innocent. They didn't use not guilty. They didn't use guilty. They said we acted appropriately. So this type of lawfare, whether it's with our frontline foot soldiers or whether it's any order that comes from the President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief, anything to undermine that, these orders which are legal, moral, and ethical, especially since they provide security, they solve the problem. Whether we're trying to win a war, or which had already at that point been won in Afghanistan, or in our own streets, we're there to provide security, reduction in crime, and the safety that every American deserves. If you're a retired general and you want to pop off the mouth, when you yourself, retired Major General Manners, you were in charge of Katrina and the looting that went on there. Should we not have federal forces in the streets when the civil authorities can't get the job done or need reinforcement? Think about what you're saying before you go on television and make videos and saying this was dangerous. I'll tell you what's dangerous is, Joe, you just described, you were in fights. So was I. I grew up in the heartland, and that was normal for boys to get beat up, and we had the part of that was fun. But what was not going on at massive levels was the violent crime, the robberies, the murders, the property crimes, the burglaries. This is going on at such high rates, and America needs to return back to, just like the military, Pete Hegseth says we need to return to the 1990 standards. Well, we need to return to a standard in the United States of America where we did not have these violent crimes. That's mainly what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about speeding, don't get me on record, but those are things that I can live with. But the things where people are dying from and having their property stolen because, this Major General Manners thinks that, this is disturbing. Well, should we get rid of alarms? Should we get rid of security dogs? Your pontification, tell me where things should begin and end.
Well, let me ask you this. Based on what you're saying, you said non-legal terms and the lawfare that we've had in the country. It looks like they perfected it over the last 20 years. Are we in an active insurrection right now? Are we actively? Has it been going on for the last couple of decades, and we were just oblivious to it, and now we're basically coming into the final stages of either we fix it or we capitulate to it?
Great question, Joe. And I'm not the lawyer or the legal analyst, but I would say not only do we have an insurrection, and I'll explain that why, but we also have an invasion on top of that. And I believe whether you're talking about George Soros's, Open Society Foundation, before somebody out there who thinks like, they brought in some kind of crazy guy. This is Fred Galvin. Let me explain my background. I wasn't a typical officer. I served one assignment outside of the operating forces where you deploy, and that was as an instructor at the Marine Corps' version of Top Gun, where we don't just do air-to-air, we do air-to-air and air-to-ground. And the mission of the Marine Corps infantry, everything centered around the Marine Corps infantry, is to locate, close with, and destroy the enemy. So my background for all that time that I was in the Marines, 26 years, 11 months, and 19 days, was to locate, close with, and destroy. And going in to become a force reconnaissance platoon commander, which I was for 6 years, and then to become the first Marine Special Operations Task Force commander, we did even more precision raids. Some people call this personality targeting. And what we do is we identify key leaders and we develop, the whole persona package, and we know where they are. We have all kinds of intelligence, which I can't get into, but we go in to target them and disrupt that. And when that was done against us in court in 2007 and 2008, during the longest war crimes trial in Marine Corps history, as I documented in my book, A Few Bad Men, this no doubtedly is going on in the United States. So when we talk about an insurrection, about people targeting our federal government, and you have people that finance that, just like we did with our enemies in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria. They're financing this. They're organizing people to be active. When you see in our streets riots with trucks dropping pallets of bricks and bringing professional rioters, Joe, this is no strange thing to me. This is organized violence, coordinated and financed by leaders who are this is not some surreptitious stream of consciousness, people waking up and doing some flash mob. This is highly organized, highly financed, and it's effective in its purpose. Their mission is to destroy this last remnant of the shining light on this globe, and that's the United States of America. So it is an insurrection, in my opinion, but I'm not the lawyer that can defend this in court. But that's my opinion, Joe.
So I think that there's no way you can describe it any other way than as an insurrection. But I look at it from the perspective of, well, that means that people are actively committing treason against our country, and yeah, we have
100%
happening. We also have seditious conspiracy because they're actually having to collude together. We've been able to prove that in multiple ways. When we're talking about Act Blue on the financial side, George Soros, NGOs that are used to actually put terrorists on the street, Antifa.
Yes.
The organization that's not an organization that's operating under the guise of Democrat Socialists of America. We've already uncovered all the pieces. We're not the smartest guys in the room. You're probably the smartest guy in the room, but I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And so as we start looking at all these different pieces, why is there no action then? Why are we having to beg, get simple things achieved inside of our own country? You can rip off the Band-Aid, and I know part of it's fear of loss, because you have the media that's manipulating, creating a narrative. But we lack courage. We lack Constitution. We lack commitment. And frankly, if they're not going to do it, Major, then maybe we should. And if we do it, am I pushing too hard on the wrong buttons to say, all right, we see the insurrection, let's go take it out?
No. Joe, this is, I can't tell you from the position of a gentleman like, I shouldn't call him a gentleman, individual like George Soros, but when somebody has compromised to the degree that they've mortgaged their soul, that where he is publicly stated on the record and video, you can see it, that he's sold his own people out, and he has no remorse for that. He's unrepentant that he, is a Jewish person in Budapest, told the Nazis where other Jewish were there, so they rounded him up, and he was paid for that, and he has no remorse for that. But once you compromise so much, and you hit it on the head, Joe, it is called compromise. And whether it's somebody that has a family member who got into substance abuse and had a period or maybe a long term of homelessness, and you're sympathetic towards that. But leadership requires understanding the problem, diving into it. I was part of our church organization where for a year we went out and actually got involved and helped the homelessness. And that brings an understanding about what this problem really is. But the solution to a problem is not to continue to perpetuate that problem and being sympathetic towards it. The solution is to identify what is going on. Okay, there's a lot of nexus here with substance abuse. Let's reform these people to restore their lives so they can have the life that God gave them, and they can find the purpose that He gave them to do. And that is not to sit there and have their life destroyed. The number one killer of our youth, 18 to 44 years old, is drug overdose. And we know that this is coming in through countries, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela. And we know that this is a ploy, phase zero operations from the Chinese Communist Party to this declaring war. But we have people in the United States that are supporting this. And when you have homelessness, which is a part of the crime, when you have gang violence and cartels, which is definitely a big part of the crime, this erodes our security, and it has to be stopped.
Gavin Newsom called President Trump a dictator. They did this No Kings rally across the entire country. They said that over 7 million people participated. I don't think 7 million, I don't think 1 million people participated, but they said they had this huge movement and all these people showed up. You have Democrats are saying that President Trump is this dictator on one side. We just went through 4 years of Biden. Frankly, I don't care who the president is. I don't actually think that the president is driving policy at a local level. But how do we recapture our country? How do we recapture our states? How do we get to a place where we're not catering to the ridiculous or compromising on the ridiculous? If we have a state and federal system where the federal government doesn't have authority over the states use systems that were sanctioned by the federal government, election systems. Those election systems are fraudulent. The media is in here as a proxy, and they're basically saying safe, secure, safe, secure, safe, secure, shut up, sit down. How in the world do we recapture the states that are captured by a system that is designed to select who they want in that office that they can control? I just feel like we're in a place right now where it's getting really hot and people are really tired of what's happening. But the states hold a lot of power. And once a state is captured, you're done. It's easy to capture a state. You're finished, right? So how does the federal government step into there and say, all right, this is a seditious conspiracy. This is treason. You're not allowed to treat Americans that way when you have a states' rights system that once you've captured the judiciary, once you've captured they can basically act with impunity, do whatever they want.
Yes. Well, Joe, you're a very good point, and let's use a couple different examples, one domestic and one foreign. So when you use Exhibit A, New York City, as a case study, you see that you can distort the facts, and even though you have immigrants in that city from Venezuela, from communist countries like Cuba, that see, and they're trying to get the alarm out. They're like, hey, we had these promises, we heard this. I'm an older gentleman or lady who saw my nation, my identity collapse. That's what's happening in America before our very eyes. This is exactly what's going on, is you promise the world, you deliver nothing, and you present the manifest. When this is fully manifest, it's not free everything, it's not cheap this, it's not lower rent, it is totalitarian government. Let's not call it socialism, let's call it what it is. It's communism. And what is even worse is we've recently elected a leader, case study, New York City, who has radical Islamic ties. And that is something that every American needs to be very well aware of.
He worked in the Arab Spring, Major. He worked in Arab Spring in Syria and Egypt. Like, he was deeply involved in this. He fast-tracked getting his U.S. citizenship. How did that happen if it didn't happen from within the government? And then if you want to talk about immigrants and voting for him, the media created a narrative and said, oh, he's popular. The ballots came out with Zamdani he was the first one, and he was on twice on the ballot. And you had Cuomo that was all the way at the very bottom. I mean, they manipulated every part of it, and it should be illegal. This behavior should be illegal. But this is common sense. I'm talking about common sense that does not appear to be very common. And now, frankly, they're creating videos already about how to tie your hijab and how to make sure that Muslims have preferential treatment in New York City. It is going to turn into a bloodbath in our own country, and you can already see it kind of boiling up. But they own the judiciary. Like, we're so far down. This is like having a sleeper cell in Afghanistan, and General Mattis saying, oh, yeah, by the way, everyone needs to put their hands down and we need to coddle these terrorists with a blanket, right? And then all of a sudden, it's as if they delivered that message to the enemy, and then the enemy used that against you and said, okay, now we know that they can't do anything to us. Let's just kill them all.
Right. That's exactly what's going on. It's very unfortunate because if you look at the example with London, you bring in the largest city in a country with the largest population, it can spread virally. This is the seed that we cannot allow to grow a root. And you asked, what do we do? Well, like President Trump has said, you have to understand that when this fails, you have to reject the donor. As hard as it is, you can't allow this to survive and to thrive and just be like, well, New York City or New York State, it's going in another direction. We can't allow that to be. I know it's just New York City, but in the rest of New York City, pardon me to any listeners, is generally not like that. But we cannot allow this to take hold. So whether it's federal fundings, because there are going to be problems. This is not something that the rest of America should pay for. Why should people, whether it's we've seen recently in New York City, people who are illegally coming to America be put in hotels and we have homeless veterans on the street? Why should we fund something that is destructive? And that's what this is. The enemies of the United States who are funding all this, they understand that the strength, our center of gravity in the United States is that we are united, and they will do everything to divide and drive a wedge and to get our country to collapse. And I believe this
appears to be working, Major. It appears to be working.
Unfortunately, it's effective, I would say.
And it's not just New York City. You can talk about Dearborn, Michigan. I want to play something for you. I want you to hear this. This is the mayor of Dearborn that is saying that they don't want to assimilate to America. Go ahead and play it.
Because what you often hear that it's accompanied with that as well, you must assimilate. I shouldn't put out a magazine that's in 2 languages. Why can't you speak English? Why are my videos subtitled in Arabic? Why is my caption both in English and Arabic? People get frustrated by this. But to me, it's like, I actually disavow the use of the term the melting pot. I actually don't like it.
Wow. That is what's going on. And that's what's going on when we were focused, Joe, on operations in the Middle East for 20 years against people. Let me explain something in real simple terms. Our enemies in the that we were fighting for 20 years were mainly using homemade explosives, primarily, and this is not exclusively, and the Kalashnikov rifle, designed 2 years after World War II ended. And that's what drove us to a stalemate. And we see the technology that's being used in Ukraine. I'm just doing a comparative analysis. So I believe that our rules of engagement were created to favor the enemy, to hamstring the soldier, to put us to, give every single soldier at the point of friction conflicting signals, this mixed signals. So I don't know what we're going to do. And that creates passivity. And that's what's going on in our cities where, it makes like, okay, this, municipal leader here, it makes sense. It sounds good. But what brings is the wrath that torments every single American, that robs them of freedom. And if you don't see what's going on in Muslim cities across Africa and now Europe, some nations in Europe, some are standing up against this. This is coming to the doorsteps of America. It's already here. And this is not accidental. This, whether it's invasions coming from the prisons of Venezuela, America, we need to wake up. This is not good. If it's good, then people who've been supporting this, how many of these people are in the homes of the Pelosi's and the Schumers? 0. That's right, 0. So they have no skin in the game. And we should demand that if you're going to support this policy, you, like a Marine Corps officer is taught the phrase ductus exemplo, Latin for lead by example. You show me, you put these people in, a bunk bed with your young daughter in the same room. And I think, or you send, these generals who are pushing this garbage, pardon my technical terms, but this was crap, this hearts and minds counterinsurgency strategy, you send your daughter and your wife to a bed and breakfast over in Bagram, Afghanistan, because after 20 years, this supposedly should have taken root. It should have been working, but you'll find out what this brings. And every single leader, if you're going to say you need this injection, let's not call it a vaccine, then you get it first. You show us what it's like. You go to Afghanistan. You put these people in your house. That's when I'll start believing you. And maybe after I see how it goes for a couple of years, we'll do a little case study and we'll see how the results went. But you're probably not going to be so bullish on what you're telling everybody else to do when you have this garbage in your own home.
Well, I can't believe they actually believe what they're saying.
No, they don't.
But this same mayor said that this person said, hey, listen, you're not listening to the people in their community. He had this to say. I wanted you to see this.
Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe, and although you live here, I want you to know, as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
That's in our own country. That is a city that used to be in the heartland of America.
Yes. And it's disgraceful. And that's a tactic of the left. That's a tactic of when one of the jobs I did post-retirement is doing information warfare. And we have to do offense and defense and understand our enemy and understand that Russia and the Chinese Communist Party are trying to attack unity. And so they come up with these narratives, which unfortunately the media and our left politicians, the Democratic Party, is aggressively jumping on this bandwagon that our nation's enemies are calling everything folk, because they know that our society, our founders developed documents, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and many other founding documents that are based upon Christian principles. And part of this in the Christian society is if you do something wrong, it's shame. And isn't it terrible if you just discriminated against these people because of their color or their sexual orientation? So they're exploiting this, calling them homophobes. Joe, are you in a state of fear? Just, rhetorical question, but you probably lost no sleep last night thinking that a homosexual is going to run and invade your house and have sex with. It's not a fear. It's just that we don't agree with it. Nor do 80-year-old men, generally find dates with 17-year-olds. That's not their preference, but it doesn't mean there's a fear. And that's what they're trying to paint, because the what we call messaging and narratives, themes and messages that you use in information warfare, it's this guilt of Christian society, which is mainly what we have in America, to make it a rational argument that, maybe I need to be more open-minded. And let's welcome this gentleman who literally, let's call it what it is. Read the Quran, know your enemy, figure out what they're selling, and it's not good for America.
No, it's not good for America. I see us getting attacked on every front, and it's a very purposeful, driven. It's the psychological warfare, right? Because good people retreat under the idea that they could be considered a bad person. So it's a line that they push themselves against, and as you let them capture our vernacular and capture the definitions of words, they just pile on. And I think the problem started, I'll go back and talk about the amount of access to information that we have with social media. And you could trace that back to a DARPA project that then was handed over to Mark Zuckerberg. That became Facebook. And then you have this kind of social media craze. But then they created these things called bots, Major. And bots have the ability to make it look like there's more brave people out there that are ridiculing Americans.
It's a deception operation. Amplify their message.
1,000%. And there's not a lot of people that have the ability to withstand it.
No.
But that, once you know that, I look at President Trump and I'm like, he's got to know.
Oh, he knows.
He's got.
Yeah.
Then why not just rip the effing Band-Aid off, run in there, arrest 50,000 people, because that's what it's going to take, do it under the Insurrection Act, have military tribunals, have a bunch of people with their chests caved in because they just got shot because they or found guilty of treason. And let's stop pretending that these judges that have tried to overrule the executive office, because they've done it now over 180 times, just in the last 9 months. Look, I'm not asking you to have the same opinion as me, and I don't want to kill anyone. I don't want to go to violence at all. But what we're having happen in our society is violence. It's violence.
Yes.
Many Americans have died. Many Americans died over in Afghanistan because of General Mattis. Many
Thousands. Yes.
have been subject to the victimization as a result of the things that we have happening in our country and our foreign policy, our domestic policy and foreign policy. We're captured. Like, I don't know how we can kick this can down any further and not look at it for what it is and be like, okay, I don't really care what they call me. They could call me King Daddy. They could call me, King Charles III. They call me whatever the hell they want to call me. But we're going to get to the bottom of this, because we know that 90% of what they have out there is bots, and the 10% that believe it, they're just flat out retarded.
Yes.
So why not just
yes. Great point, Joe. And they're using bots, which I believe is a coefficient that multiplies this ideology pushed by the Chinese Communist Party to a level that's beyond our imagination, as well as what has gotten into our public school systems in America, what has gotten into our federal government and how we educate people, whether it's a military leader, people that I went to infantry officer course with, that went on to the National War College, and now our generals believe in ideology that's so radical. But this is going on in America through the federal government's educational systems to our youth and to our senior leaders, not just in the military, but across, we call, a whole of government. And it is an external narrative that when people receive grants in the educational system to have this business school or this medical school developed, it comes with a cost. And we see this in countries just like we're seeing in Venezuela, like we see across Africa. While we were fighting this war in Afghanistan that I would submit did not need to last 20 years, but we were fixated in there because it was making a lot of companies very wealthy. It was making a lot of retired generals, and let's call it what it is, the No General Left Behind program, very wealthy, for them to mortgage their souls and go on to work, just like the former Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, working for Raytheon, and the former Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joe Dunford, working for Lockheed Martin, General Mattis working for General Dynamics. I mean, this revolving door of, hey, how can we have these forever wars, whether the tail wags the dog and the president orders us out of Afghanistan, that's a whole nother, but, we started a proxy war because the Pentagon and these military industrial complex, which Eisenhower warned about, it's become a fourth branch of the federal government. And so what we need to stand up against this, we need to identify this. And I'm not talking, I was a commando who did raids on multiple deployments and multiple missions on a daily basis, going after and capturing, kill. We need a strong defense. Our strength is our technology, and I'm all for that. So I'm not saying pacification. I'm just saying that we use violence. The role of an officer in the military is to regulate violence. And we need to have leaders to make sure, just like we did as a demonstration in Iran, that we will use technology to crumble you. And if we have to do things that expose and threaten and erode you, like we're doing right now through naval presence with amphibious task force with Marines on board to Venezuela or sinking their ships, we have to be smart about how we're doing things. But to have military leaders, as we have right now, that are so woke and going out publicly and criticizing, hey, let's count how many American forces have been lost and killed in action since Trump's. That's right. There's no evidence. There's no evidence of a member of the National Guard or a Marine that was called in the streets of Los Angeles killing anybody since Trump's been in office. So let's not use.
They had a couple close calls, but that's because they raised their weapons and fired in the direction of someone who was trying to kill another individual.
Yeah, and I'm not saying people haven't been killed.
Yeah, no.
Because there's police there. Police.
I'm just telling you that the National Guard is doing an exceptional job of operating.
They are. Amen.
Because, frankly, the one time that I know of that's documented, somebody was pulling a gun and getting ready to shoot into a crowd, and the National Guardsman literally shot through the hole in his shirt, and then told him the next shot won't miss.
Right.
The guy's like, okay, let me put my gun down. Right.
Yeah.
So the amount of restraint that they've had to use, I just, Major, I look at your story. I want to come back to your story because I want to be able to finish up with that and talk about your book.
Okay.
But I also just, I have great hope in the fact that we're getting to a good place. I have a lot of consternation about what's happening with people on president's team, right? I mean, you talk about I call them Kardashian Patel and Dan Bongino, the things that they've done in the FBI. They promised transparency. They promised they'd, restore order. And they started off with DOJ, same thing. We're going to get out there. We're going to prosecute someone. We have 0 prosecutions. We have 0 people that have been indicted. I'm not talking about Comey or Letitia James. There's a lot of people that should be in jail and arrested, but they recognize the restraint that they have, and they recognize the judiciary is absolutely captured. So once you recognize that, you'd have to, based on how many people have been the lawfare and the persecution across the country in every state, whether it's state court or federal court, given all of that, my heartburn is that I'm not sure if we don't pull the lever, insurrection lever, that we have a chance, that we have a chance to save it, because there's too many disparate environments in our country that have been infected.
Yes. I don't think we need to. Somebody asked me this question last week, and the Insurrection Act is, we're already doing what we need to do. But what we don't need is these talking heads. As during Trump 45, we saw Petraeus and General Mattis go to the Atlantic within 1 week of each other and coordinate this attack. So general officers, guess what? You're just like me. So when you publicly condemn a sitting commander-in-chief, well, because we're a pensioner, and we signed up for this. We literally signed up. It's not a phrase. We signed up for this, and there's a uniform code of military justice that as long as we're getting this pension, we can and should be held accountable for. So if you criticize a standing commander-in-chief as a pensioner, you're getting paid, and that is what we call contempt. And the uniform code of military justice, allows them to come, and I think they should bring these people back. It's not, oh, look at this radical, but you're working against the commander-in-chief. So when you were in the military, you would never allow a break in good order and discipline. You would never allow Rudy in the rear ranks with the rusty rifle, some troop in the formation in the cheap seats, to come out and criticize you or slam you or talk trash or take arms. Because when you go to the Atlantic magazine and you smear your leader, would you allow that? Well, let's just look at what the Marine Corps did with Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller when he used social media to say, hey, where's the accountability at this failed withdrawal? Let's not call it a withdrawal. Let's call it a retreat, because that's what it was, such an abomination of how we did that. And then our leaders tried to cover it up and say, well, this was the largest. Hey, that again is deception operation. Let's not confuse quantity with quality. Let's not confuse efficiency with effectiveness. This was ineffective. You may have gotten a lot of people out very quickly. That wasn't our mission. The first thing you do in a non-combatant evacuation operation, not to get deep into this, is you categorize people, and priority 1 is the American citizens. So why did the first plane, that C-17 that took off from Kabul, have over 600 Afghans on it? And we couldn't round up Americans. So we have failed leaders. They need to be held accountable. We have failed leaders in our federal government right now. We have failed leaders at the municipal level. They need to be exposed. And these individuals that are funding and organizing this, our Department of Justice, I believe, and we don't need the Insurrection Act, because I believe they just need to stand up and exercise the authorities that they have right now.
Well, how do you get rid of the judges then?
Yes, that's the problem.
Judges? I mean, if you don't have the Insurrection Act, how do you get rid of states' rights going off the deep end and not respecting the Constitution? You have judges that are actively throwing people in jail, giving them high fines, doing doing things that are counterproductive to what the law states, and they're just saying basically dilly.
Yes.
And it just
Yeah.
happens. How do you recapture the states if you don't declare there's an act of insurrection? You said there's an insurrection. But why can't we get to the bottom of it and say, okay, we have an insurrection. We know what it is. We're going to call up all the forces. We're going to have a free and fair election. We're going to get rid of the judges over the next 9 months. We're going to put in new judges that have, they have to take care of the law. They have to make sure they stay law-abiding, get 3 strikes. If you're a judge and you violate it 3 times, you're out. Right? Why can't we get to something very simple that allows us to solve this problem?
Very good question. And I'll say this, that when the left is, I have to applaud some of their tactics, because when they see something they don't like, when they want to destroy a city, they just defund the police. And that's what I would say. Until we can get to the point where leaders can identify and defend this in a court of law and call, this insurrection and defend and win, not just go to court. You have to, convince beyond a shadow of a doubt and win. Until that can happen, we need to use the tactics of the left. And here I'm speaking, I had to have a campaign, unfortunately, not for political. I'm not a politician. I live in Hawaii, so I'll never be in public office for reasons that are obvious. But I will say this. When I was attacked, I served 7 more years after, this ambush that we were in, which we went to the longest war crimes trial. And I continued to serve while getting, these drive-by hits in the media that they were just destroying us professionally. And then I got out and they still kept it up. That's what led me to come out publicly and say our side of the story. And my point is I had to use a campaign that used the tactics of people who were trying to attack and destroy. They were trying to attack and destroy. They couldn't lock me up, which was their goal. So what they do, they just professionally destroyed me, just like they've tried to do with Donald Trump. But I was attacked in the media. I was attacked by lawmakers. I was attacked and had to defend myself with lawyers. And so I used those same things. Lawyers, lawmakers. We had a bipartisan, bicameral resolution, and then the media, and publishing a book to let the world know. And it took me 11 years to declassify the transcripts from this courtroom trial. But once I did, and it's fully exposed and it's laid out, I mean, the comments in the book that are from the trial, those are verbatim. And when you read what these people said, and that's what we need to do in America right now. So we need to use the enemy's tactics, what they're attacking us with, until we can get to court and defend that. We need to defund. If these states don't want to do that, then, I'm sorry about your highways. But maybe your judges will wake up and smell the coffee when your schools don't get funded and your highways, it starts looking like Havana instead of.
Now, there's a lot of them that do now. Like this is a real problem. I guess running a business and I'm actually, one of the reasons why this would be a shorter podcast is I'm running out to meet with a client that is having severe trauma, so to say, in their business, and so I asked them to send me a picture of how you see your organization. And then I dug into it and I was like, that's not your organization at all. I was like, these 3 people have to go. He goes, well, that guy's been with me for 9 years. I go, he's got to go. He's terrible for your business. He's actually a boat anchor.
Yes.
So the same thing you said in government, when somebody fails to do their job, it doesn't matter if I like someone or not, right? They got to go.
Yes.
They can no longer be there.
Yeah. That's what we have to do. Just, you see in the military, these are great people. And I'm not saying they haven't done amazing things, but just like if you get called into the court, they're not saying, is Joe a good guy? Did he live a good life? They're saying on the 19th of X month, did he point a gun at an innocent person and pull the trigger? That's what we're here to talk about, is the intersection of this time, this place, and this person. And when leaders fail and they make a habit of it. I mean, you're talking entire cities. When you're talking Seattle and Portland, these are cities that were burned down. How about those business owners? And they want to, I'm not even getting into January 6th, but there is no comparison. Oh, that's the people's house. No, I'll tell you about people's houses. Let's talk about what happened in St. Louis, where when people try to take over homes and businesses and they light them on fire. Yeah, that was a failure. And thank God that we have a president that is continually learning, adapting, improvising, and defending the American people better now than he did in the last election. Yeah. And we need to get on board because they are using everything. I mean, you look at last week, what happened when we reopened the federal government. What does that mean? Not to get into Econ 101, but we should have had billions of dollars going to people to spend money. But, we've seen the market pull back and then this deception operations being amplified in the media that, everything's frothy and they want to create fear. They want to destabilize our government, and they want to do it through the media. If it's not through, the Republicans now have won and reopened the government, they're going to, look at the market, it's collapsing. They want to create fear. Fear is the strongest of our emotions, and they're using it very well in this information warfare by one narrative or the other. They are very quick to pivot. And they're effective at it. And we have to be the same way. We have to have that agility, and we have to be effective at fighting this internal enemy. It's foreign and domestic enemies, and we need to win.
I would agree with you totally. Major, thanks for coming on. Let's. How can people find your book? Let's start there. How can people find your book?
Okay, the best way is available on Amazon. This is a #1 best-selling, award-winning book, Few Bad Men. You go on Amazon, it's available on hardback. You can listen to it this minute on Audible, or you can read it on Kindle. It's frequently, when I say Amazon, because it's frequently sold out at most bookstores. I'm about ready to go out and do some book signings over Christmas, and it's hard to get your hands on this book, but it is an incredible story. It'll open your eyes and expose what a lot of people don't like to talk about in the media. Just like this issue with the National Guard, America, we have to open our eyes and ears and understand what's really going on. When crime is running rampant and there's no security, providing security is not the problem. The problem is that we didn't have security in the first place. People have defunded the police, and they're not letting police do their jobs. And that needs to be fixed. And you need cities across America, we need effective, strong, courageous leaders. That is what we need in America, not weak, feeble leaders that are sympathetic to or on the payroll of somebody that's trying to undermine our way of life in our cities.
Well, I tell you what, I'm getting ready to get on a plane. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get downloaded on Audible, and I'll listen to it on the way to
Okay. Well, Joe, I'm not going to take responsibility because your blood's going to boil, and if your head spins off your shoulders, it's that frustrating of a book. The most commonly used word is people say is it's disturbing, but it's a nonfiction book. This happened to American, Marine special operators, and it shouldn't. So it requires America to take action and be active in our federal government.
Well, John Tigan, Tig Tigan, is actually a good friend of mine. And I've read 13 Hours, his book, and I'm not surprised by anything. I also spent 6.5 years in the Middle East and Africa. I learned Arabic while I was over there. And so I've seen a lot. I have a kind of a
Joe knows.
A part of me loves the people in the Middle East because I've seen our foreign policy destroy and murder more people than I can imagine. And it creates generations of terrorists. And then when we go over there with, say in 2001, we're going to fight terrorism, or we're getting rid of, these weapons of mass destruction, we could have been more truthful on we just wanted a regime change. And we've seen that regime change happen time after time again, whether we're talking about North Africa, East or West Africa, what we saw happen in Nigeria during the early 80s, or we can talk about what happened in Libya, dating back to the early 80s, where you had CIA and Libyan officials that were operating in synchrony that caused the death of over 180 people on a plane over Lockerbie. So I know too much. The problem is I know too much. I've been involved.
Right.
I've had too many seats at the table. I've sat with kings, presidents, prime ministers, and I've been everywhere from Saudi Arabia to Bahrain to Lebanon to Syria to Egypt to Sudan. I've seen all the same lies that they tell in the United States. I've seen.
Yes.
I'm not going to be surprised by your book, and my blood will boil. And I think I just back to that thing, like God has put us in this place at this time for a reason. And I think this is where we start to strip it away and just let the truth be something that cannot be. Can't be
Well, it's not just your knowledge, Joe. It's combined with your conscience and courage that requires you to do what you're doing now, and that's to get the word out and to have people understand what we've been talking about are facts. When I talk about these cities and I talk about the crime statistics, I talk about what happened in them, these cities, throughout many periods of time, and this is case evidence. And then I talk about what has happened under President Trump's watch, that crime's gone down, violence gone down, and not a single person has been killed. So this fear mongering that's being used by the left in putting up retired general officers to create fear, that destabilizes the government when they're not using facts. And that's the difference between what you and I are talking about and what the left is using emotions. They're not using any facts. Oh, they're using fear. And I compare it.
Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts
Yes.
don't care about your feelings.
I have a friend that has unfortunately gone the wrong way. He was a bomb technician. And Joe, I said, well, they didn't teach you down there at Eglin Air Force Base to defuse a bomb and to use fear and emotions and guess. And no, they told you to make the best decision based on how you were trained. Use your logic and go with how you were trained, not to use fear and emotion. So whether you're defusing a bomb or trying to solve a complex problem in our American cities, we need to use our minds and less of our emotions.
I agree with you fully. Hager, thank you. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for the sacrifices you made.
Well,
Continue to
thank
make.
you, and God bless you, Joe.
God bless you, brother. Man, Major Galvin's he's an amazing man. He's done some great things for our country, 27 years of service, and continues to serve, continues to go out and speak about what's actually happening. There are people that would say, and the media has done this to him specifically, would say that here's the story. By the way, it's always people who have never accomplished anything in their lives that are willing to take shots at Major Galvin. But I want to say this: go get his book. I'll let you guys know tomorrow. I'm going to listen to it when I get on the plane. I'm going to switch gears for a minute. I only have a couple more minutes with you. I do want to cover the things related to the FBI. I got to handle this stuff related to the FBI and lying about Crooks. I want to start by saying, yesterday someone said, Joe, are you a fair weather supporter of President Trump? No. I always say that I never have any permanent alliances. I only have permanent ideals. I've had friends that I've been friends with for 20 years. Matter of fact, I probably am friends with more people. I don't know of many people that have friendships or have relationships with people as long as I do. From my insurance guy all the way down to, I'm friends with my ex-wife. And you would say, well, that's kind of weird. I'm friends with girls I dated back in high school and college. I don't talk to them much anymore just because I want to respect the relationship I have with my wife. But I believe in relationships. It doesn't mean that it has always been easy. But I say that because, do I like everything that President Trump is doing? No, I don't. I don't have a universal support for Israel. I don't have a thumper running around saying that the Bible says that those that bless Israel are blessed. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. It's not in the Bible. It's not biblical. And frankly, if you read the entire Bible in entirety, you wouldn't be able to justify that position. And if you did, you'd be out there stoning gay people and not working on Sunday because you'd be stoned to death if you didn't do that. So, you can take little bits and pieces of the Bible and you can manipulate it, much like we manipulate information today. But I will say this. I don't have any hatred towards Muslims. I don't have any hatred towards Jews. I don't have any hatred towards Sikhs or Hindus or even agnostic or people. I do have a lot of hate towards evil. So if you're with the synagogue of Satan, then you don't get my vote, right? You will not get an ounce of my time. And with that said, I want to just preface it by saying this about what President Trump is doing. One, you have ineffective leaders. If President Trump was on the show Apprentice right now, and this is I went back and watched a couple episodes over the last couple of days because I wanted to see how President Trump would showboat, but frankly, how he would fire people and what kind of incompetence he would get rid of people for it, right? If President Trump were operating under the same way that he runs his company or runs his company, and the same things that made him realize that people were taking from him what was not theirs to take, he would have fired 70% of his cabinet. But because of optics and the fact that he made the decision initially to bring someone in with those talents, because of the media and some of the sharks on the outside, he doesn't have the same authority from an optics standpoint to shoot people and get rid of them. Shoot people meaning fire them. Now, with that said, you got to do something because the DOJ is out of control. The FBI is out of control. The FBI is using the same tactics. Kash Patel is literally a leftist in bacon. He is using the sharp stick of lawfare against people like Kyle Seraphin, who, by the way, is the only reason that he got into office is because the Suspendables and others stood him up and said, here's your guy. He's going to do right by the FBI, and he's going to put people in the positions they need to be in. Here's what ended up happening, though. He betrayed those people like an Indian scammer. And if you want to know anything about the culture, there's a culture, and by a certain group of Indians, not all of them. Again, Ben Carson is not the same as he did. But there's a certain culture that ingratiates themselves to themselves and doesn't really care about anyone else but themselves. Step on their own grandmother in order to be successful. That's who Kash Patel is. I want to start by showing you this. This is an article on Fox News. And this particular article, the Trump would-be assassin in Butler has massive digital footprint, alleges would-be. And let me say that the digital trial of President Trump's would-be assassin Thomas Crooks tells quite a different of Thomas Crooks tells a different tale than the FBI's congressional statements about the 20-year-old New York Post columnist Miranda Devine told American Reports Monday. We were sort of led to believe that Thomas Crooks was really a ghost. There was no motive that could be ascertained from the online accounts. And yet a source has provided us with a lot of information from 17 different online accounts that Thomas Crooks had. How is this possible? How would the FBI miss this? How did the FBI miss this? Well, let's go down a little further. Here's Bongino did an interview on the Butler assassination, and let's just break this down a little bit. Go ahead and play cut 2.
You know what, Maria? Kash is not kidding. We've been personally briefed extensively on every single detail, nugget, tendril of this case. One is actively in court right now, so out of respect for the case, it's probably more appropriate that I stay quiet on that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth, and whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent and my personal friendship as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't. There in some of these cases, the there you're looking for is not there. And I know people, I get it. I understand. It's not there. If it was there, we would have told you.
Well, Kyle Seraphin had this to say. Let's put this up if we could. This is evidence there is no Biden FBI or Trump FBI. It's just the FBI or this FBI or that FBI. The FBI is the FBI, and it creates fake white supremacy cases with undercover agents for budget and stats. It has been doing it for decades. Read below. And actually, if you go into that one, please, if you would. You have to open up that tweet. Every effing time, this includes soliciting acts of mass violence in New York from an individual who, unbeknownst to Kash Patel, is an undercover FBI employee in UC. Leader of white supremacist group pleaded guilty to soliciting hate crimes and sending instructions to make bombs. And all right, take it down. This is the problem. The problem that I have is that they're not telling the truth about anything. And Dan Bongino lied about, you can go look at it yourself, the information for Thomas Crooks, who, by the way, is connected to the Charlie Kirk assassin. How is that possible? How are those two people connected? And they are. We'll have the information on this tomorrow for you. I'm running out of time, but I want you to see this. This is what Kash Patel is doing. He's assigning the music sensation, Alexis Wilkins. She's been given her own FBI SWAT team. Go ahead and play it.
And people were proud of the USA, American pride, American made, fills and still played on FM. Man, I just want that again.
I cannot. This is Kash Patel in 2023 talking about Chris Ray.
And I'm not saying take all their funding. I'm not the defund everything guy. I'm just saying Chris Ray doesn't need a government-funded G5 jet to go to vacation. Maybe we ground that plane. $15,000 every time it takes off. Just a thought.
Minimum.
But here's a tweet by Kash Patel. This tweet, Kash Patel is using a multi-million-dollar taxpayer-funded jet to fly his girlfriend around. Kash Patel is using it while you face Trump affordability crisis. He is wasting your money. There you go, Kash Patel. And here's the last thing I'll say. This is a Facebook video that I have out. I just play it.
But watch out, sir. You can't go until the white man says you can, sir.
Excuse me?
You can't go until the white man says.
Until the who says?
The white man.
The white man tells me to go. It is 2025. I am tired of you racist,
the white man.
backwards
the little
mob.
white man.
You
the
man.
white man. Stupid boy didn't listen to the white man.
You have to listen to the white man.
Yes, you do, or there will be consequences.
Okay, I just want to put that out there. I got to go. I'm going to pray us out a little bit here real quick, but the white man is obviously the sign. It's the don't walk sign, the walk sign. Although, there's something to be said about not pissing on the white man, because there's a reason why they made the white man on the sign to begin with. So you don't get run over by a car. Maybe so that you don't end up destroying your community is probably a good idea. All right, let's pray. Father God, thank you for Major Galvin. Thank you for the sacrifices you've made. Thank you for the book that he was able to create that gives people knowledge as to just the institutional rot that we face, not just in one part of our government, but in all of them. I ask you to put a shield around Major Galvin, protect him, give him a voice so he can go out among America and just speak truth to the people. I also ask you to bless my flights and the travel that I'm about to embark on. And Father, I ask you to bless the people that they may not be hopeless, that we may get to a place of action. We may pray to you, Father, to bring things to you. We may speak, we may act, we may make sure that we are standing when we do all of this. Father, we're grateful for the blessings you've given us, even as we step past those to look at all the turmoil that we face. You know that these trials are all but just a moment in time. Give us, Father, the courage and the commitment so we can do the right thing by you, Father. These things. All right, I'll see you guys later. Have a great one. See you guys, Patrick.
Rise up untamed in the heart of the fire where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. real. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown, tame nation. It's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild forever.